He emailed Tim and me and asked if we could have about 10 minutes on our agenda to discuss the financing for the Harvard Elementary School. I believe I did a handout of a PowerPoint presentation. And I would just,
I just wanted to understand in terms of the policy of when we have the agenda set, because it's hard to react to something in real time.
this came on, Ken emailed the request before Julie and I got together with Tim to do the agenda. I got it a couple of days before we were done the agenda. I suggested, all I knew from Ken was that he wanted to talk about the elementary school and the financing of the project. And I suggested to him yesterday that it might be helpful if there was something in writing that we could be looking at. I understood it to be just a walkthrough of some concerns that he wanted to share, and perhaps other members of the public had approached him about their concerns, and he wanted to bring it before the board. Next week we do have to decide on articles and if we're going to support them or not. I'm sure we're going to have a huge discussion on this. I thought it was good to give the selectmen an opportunity to raise these concerns.
I don't disagree with that at all. My concern is that we just got this piece of paper here and it's so hard to, that's be able to do that in real time. Usually I think the policy was to have materials ahead of time.
It is, and it was really because I got concerned that as he was speaking, we might not fully appreciate it's hard to write down what somebody is saying, and I thought if he could capture his concerns on a piece of paper would be helpful for all of us. Are you objecting to hearing anything tonight from him?
But not on any particular, understanding, but generally speaking, we have materials before us. That's my concern.
Yes. Yes.
Because I spoke with this request in the city last Monday, and that's the agenda came out early because Julie was heading off on vacation. We have one of the biggest questions before Harvard right now is the financing of this project. And there's a debate raging in town, obviously we've all seen it, in the newspaper and on next door. And there's clearly 2 points of view out there. And the Board of Selectmen has heard one perspective from the proponents, if you will, but we've not heard the other side. And with respect to advanced material, the night we voted this last June, the primary presentation that went on the wall was handed out at the meeting, and we had to vote that night. So we're not voting tonight. I just think it's important for the board to hear both sides.
Well, I completely agree with that. Absolutely. I'm just surprised that it's nice to be able to have something ahead of time so that you can
Exactly.
digest it and ask reasonable questions.
I get it.
Or expand on that.
I get it. So, in addition, recently a group has coalesced and formed on the other side of the issue. It's called A Better Way for Harvard Schools. And they've formally filed with the town clerk as a group. And their chair is Bill Marinelli. Bill was before he was on the planning board, he was 3 times elected as a selectman. And he was also played a very big role in the last building committee for the schools, the Bromfield building committee about 15 years ago. As you can see, there's also a lot of other town leaders that have coalesced around this. I just want to be able to give them a chance to put their perspective on the table. Bill has some slides to flip through around how big the project we can finance and some concerns about it. So with that, I'd really like to give the microphone to Bill.
One concern I have is that I didn't realize we were going to have a slide presentation. Because we do only have 10 minutes and we have a lot to do.
Well, I think he could be quite concise.
And also, it wasn't specifically to have this pack move on our agenda. I thought it was to have you speak to it.
Yeah.
So
I think my email to you said Bill Marinelli.
No, it didn't. I never recall it
And it
saying.
didn't say in the agenda.
Did you recall it saying? I don't. Okay. Well, it didn't show up on the agenda as that.
I don't put the agenda out, but I put the request in.
Okay. Well, what's the preference of the board? Do you want to just walk through what we have in front of us and Ken can explain it? Do you want to have a very quick presentation by Bill? I will defer to the board. I know that there's quite an alumni group out there.
There's a lot of concerned people
I
here
think-
both sides.
Yeah, we came here to hear what's going on here, not 10 minutes.
Agree to having absolutely open discussion, you're right to do so. I don't disagree at all, I welcome that. I just wish that the materials had been beforehand, and that's just generally our policy, because, you
So
know.
I give some, yeah, Kari, you've said that twice now. I would like to know if the board would like to just have Ken walk through the concerns that are here, or if you would defer to allowing his request to have Bill walk through his PowerPoint.
No, I want at least 24 hours, our policy's 48 hours.
That's outrageous.
Yeah, I find it
Wait, I'm asking you a question about allowing who should speak to the PowerPoint. That's my question. We have a PowerPoint in front of us, we get those often. Who can speak to it?
I honestly, doesn't matter to me who speaks to it. What I am really unhappy about is that we thought that this was put on the agenda because Ken asked, because there was some topic. We had no idea what it was. I totally want to hear from citizens. I am very uncomfortable with having a PAC on the agenda when there, are we setting a precedent that now all of a sudden we can put statements from PACs into the meeting? That's the only part I am truly uncomfortable with. I'm very happy to hear what this is. I'm not sure we're going to be able to have any response or anything because it's very short notice, but
Would you like Ken to walk through instead of Bill?
I'd like to put it off for a week.
Well, we have it on the agenda for now.
We don't have this on the agenda for now, 24 hours, 48 hours,
Ken can
not
speak
great
to
policy.
his concerns, Stu. He can speak to what he raised.
He can speak to what it is without a PowerPoint presentation then.
We have some stuff in front of us that we can use as a guide.
I never saw it until 3 minutes ago.
Fine.
Well, you see it now, don't you?
Okay. Excuse me, we're running this meeting here and I'm trying to sort out the wish of the board. We are 5 people. We have to decide how we're going to proceed on something that was not presented as it is now before us.
It's on the agenda. We got a lot more than 5 here.
I understand, and you can listen to what we are discussing. I would just like to know if the board is happy with Ken walking through this, or if they want Bill to show his PowerPoint. And I will defer to the wishes of the board, but we have 10 minutes for this conversation. We want to talk about other options for the elementary school. That's what I understood from Ken. We wanted to discuss other options of financing and what the cost would be in town. So, I'm not hearing, so I might just make a ruling. If nobody's going to speak up, and I'm going to...
I can speak up
Okay.
anymore. I mean, I think our selectmen policies allow any selectman to put an item on this board. I sent a request in long ago saying I'd like Bill to come in and do this. And it was put on the agenda. And quite frankly, I'm quite surprised right now. And as far as advanced materials, I'm sorry. I mean, even at the quad board meeting, I walked in to discuss financing and there was a giant pile of papers on the table. I mean, this unfortunately is the norm on this topic. And I think we're not trying to make a decision tonight. I just want to hear I want the board to be exposed to the other side. That's all. And, Bill put the slides together. I just stumble through them, but they're his slides. So it's, I'll defer to Madam Chair. What would you like to do?
I think given that people have very mixed feelings about the receipt of this, I appreciate the fact that we do have the slides. I certainly appreciate the public turnout because I think this is a topic that folks in this town are really struggling with. I think there are people who are very passionate about building a new school. There are people that are very passionate about what it's doing to our property taxes, and I think there are people caught in the middle. I think there are people that are worried about who will be driven out of town by having to pay higher taxes. That's where the tax impact comes in. But I think there are a lot of people that are stuck in the middle, so that's why I appreciated Ken wanting to come forward and talk about the impact of financing and some other things for us to consider. So with that said, I think I would ask you to work through this.
I'll do it.
Bill, thank you, I'm sorry, but there's been a misunderstanding, and I'll take some responsibility for not following up on the agenda.
Could you advance this slide?
Say when, Ken.
All right, this is a short summary, and I will try to compact this. Basically, the key points are, when we were at town meeting 2 years ago and kicked this project off, it was estimated to cost not a whole lot of money. We'll get into that. A lot of things were added to the project along the way. I experienced a lot of it. I was on the school building committee for a lot of that process. We don't think the financial analysis of the project impact reflects its true cost. And we think that the true cost puts the town at considerable risk. And since most of the town's budget is spent on education, it puts our education system at considerable risk. The replacement of the K-wing and the key upgrades to the A8 building, we think can be accomplished at a lot lower cost, which would have a far less impact on, the big question is how do we finance this thing? Well, if it's much smaller to finance, it gets much easier and it has less impact on everything else. So the next slide, quite frankly, talks about what happened to the paper last week. I have never seen such a piece of investigative reporting, and I was dismayed, quite frankly, to read through it. And it's, the quote at the bottom, the pervasive message was that option one the committee had with an estimated $40 million cost would have been a minimal fix. In fact, the press examination of the estimates in the building committee documents showed that the proposed fixes to the existing school would have replaced nearly everything inside the building. And yet, when it was sent to the state, according to the article, it was described as, just a K-wing replacement and up the code. And it was described that way to citizens when they got to vote on these choices. So I think we have a process that's had some real serious bumps, if you will, in the road. The next slide talks about the ed plan. The ed plan had to go into the state considerably before the school building committee sent in their recommendation. You can see the date on it there, March 30th, 2017. I was a little stunned. I was on the school building committee in April and discovered it had already gone in without ever being discussed at the school building committee. They're supposed to make and trade us. It's great that a visioning group got together and put this document together, but maybe it should have been traded off against the cost of the project and other things. I mean, that's the purpose of these committees. The next slide just mentions two things Bill wanted to highlight. The gym, just as an example of, is this gym really need to be replaced while we're at it here? And the cafeteria. It's hard presenting somebody else's slides. So I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here. I know you're all pressed for time. The next slide talks about the new monies that have been identified. The capital committee has said, gee, we can put $1 million into this. Well, it's nice for them to recommend something, but it's up to the town meeting to decide whether those funds are redirected that way. And you can't just assume the tax bill drops from 13% down to 11%. Because those monies would have been spent on something else. I mean, those are kind of, Bill doesn't like me calling these the town savings accounts, but they're monies that have been set aside for other things. And if all of a sudden we say, oh, we can reduce the cost of this project by just draining out those accounts, I'm not sure that's really valid. So if we use the 13% on the average tax bill, you get to 14.18. And I think we need to keep that in mind as we look at that. The next slide Bill had was to look at the major capital projects and what will be the impact on this. If we do this, will we be able to do a lot of other things over the next 20 years? There are some things identified in the capital plan, but if you look back over the last 35 years, last 25 years, life of this bond into the future, there was $35 million worth of stuff that we did. And there's not a lot of room for that if you do this project. So what will be crowded out by this project? Let's go to the next slide. I think the press also did an amazing piece of reporting on the question of what happens if we say no and have to go back go back into the state aid process. I asked Tim Reagan to ask the state what's the process. Let's say send us something saying, yeah, you can reapply. The K-Wing will still give you priority in the process. But when you look at the towns that have reapplied and what's happened, the ones that the press has identified that you heard from, I think it was, he's got stars up there, and I can't remember, it's obviously too small, but I thought it was like 5 out of 6 or some very high number. Not Lincoln. Interesting, I went to the Lincoln newspaper online, and they were lamenting the fact that they didn't have a health issue that would have given them priority, which obviously is one of the things that gave us priority. So, we think that's a viable alternative. And next. Devens has become a bigger and bigger part of our school population, and obviously we all know that the Devens contract has been huge for Harvard. The thing that is concerning is not everyone may realize Devens used to send their kids to Shirley schools. They switched to Harvard. We're glad they did. But Devens is not a democracy. They have a lot of residential land to develop. And they have sold that land to a developer, we believe. And the developer hasn't sold all the houses yet. But what is mass development's motivation, since they're in the business of developing land? Might they be tempted to go back to Shirley schools, to a less expensive option? It's much closer to them. And they don't have a lot more land to sell. And if we lost the Devens contract after building this school, it would be very difficult. There's no termination clause in the contract to recover capital spending, such as for the school. The next slide is one Bill put together researching data on the state website and the town reports. It shows an interesting trend here. I asked them, what is foundation enrollment? Well, that's, I guess, the state's term for the kids who actually live in Harvard proper, if you will. Note the decline in enrollment from 1,250 to down to 950 over the last 10 years. Even with total enrollment includes Devens and choice students, even with that, there's been a substantial decline in enrollment. Meanwhile, the tax bill per house has gone up rapidly, and we believe that the all-new HES would place Harvard with the 15th highest single-family tax bill in the state. That's, by the way, assuming we do move the $1 million from the capital fund and the Devens fund. If you didn't do that, we go to 14th, and we'd have the highest tax rate among all top towns in the state, which is, I think personally that puts the town out on a real financial limb, and all it takes is a recession or something, and where do you cut back? The vast majority of our town budget is for education. And some people who moved here recently say, well, Harvard wouldn't cut back on, we could always pass an override if we needed to. Well, in the last recession, 2008, we didn't. A lot of the selectmen who were on board then are in the room. So it's a risky place to be when you're at that high a tax rate and you have put that level of burden on people. My wife's a teacher in Sudbury, very expensive school system, yet they've had 2 layoffs since she's been there. They're been totally budget driven, where the citizens didn't step up. So the next slide, we think the way to really deal with the financing issue on this, all new school generates, is to reject it and to develop something a lot closer to what we told town meeting 2 years ago we were going to do. We think you could drop the price of this thing substantially, and we also think it's very important to give voters a transparent and informed choice on this, and which gets me back to the press article from last week. I don't think it's been a transparent, informed process. So that's the concern, that there's 2 ways to address the financing issue, and one of them is to develop a much more affordable school so that we don't put our future town budget, and quite frankly, our teachers at risk. And that is my best shot at whipping through Bill's slides. I think that's the last one. Okay. So, anyway, that's the other side of the envelope.
Okay, thank you, Ken. Do folks have some questions about, I guess maybe starting with the original assumption 2 years ago? Could you clarify that, just?
Yeah, I was actually on the capital committee at the time with several other members from the room. And if you go to the warrant book for that year, it's quite clear what the proposal was. It said, rather specifically, it was to, you have it there? It's expected that proposed changes will address the mold and structural issues of the K-wing and also bring the main building of HES up to code and compliance with ADA accessibility. If you go to the Finance Committee section of the report, it estimated it would cost $6 to $10 million gross. CPIP estimated it would be 4.5 million after state aid. So that's what was proposed. And in fact, in the floor debate, because many of us went back and actually watched the video, it's online, a question was asked from the floor, are we talking about demolishing everything? And the answer was no, we're just talking about the K-wing. So I mean, obviously this project's grown a lot, and I think some of it's warranted. I was on the school building committee for quite a while. I think if you can fix the roof and the heating system in the main building, and for modest renovations, the state pays half, so fine, let's do those things. But as the paper pointed out, it went way beyond that, and that's the concern. I don't know if that addresses your question, Lizzie.
Yeah, no, that does. Good refresher for me. I will ask if anybody here has a question for Ken, what you just said.
Well, not a question on that, but
Or a comment?
a comment on that original concept. At that point in time, nobody really had any idea of the level of repairs that would be required or what it would cost. The $4.5 million came from an initial study that an architect had done that was purely for repairing just the K-wing. And it was a very initial study. That was literally the only data that anyone had at that point. I was involved in some of those discussions in terms of what number do we put. We were literally pulling numbers out of the air. Nobody had any information. As the building committee went through the process, it was very apparent then that you could not just repair the K-wing, because there were a lot of code triggers and everything that happened to the 1988 building. And then you have to do all of the work. And when you look at just the repairs, that total is a little over 20 million. That is the bare bones that the architects put together. That does not include a new K-wing, because they were required to put that together for the MSBA. And it's in the documents. And the way they came up with that was literally not tearing anything down, but repairing everything. So if you're looking for something and you're saying that it's not expensive to just repair, that is literally just repairing everything. And it does not include a new roof, and it does not include new windows, and it does not include repairs to the external walls of the 1988 building. So it's not like there's some $10 million option sitting out there. And in terms of how the process moved forward in the analysis that the press did on the various options that were in the PSR, I think there's going to be some good information in the next paper, but the school building committee looked at what the press had done, or not the school building committee, but I myself, because I was quoted quite literally in that article, and it unfortunately was an analysis of a level of cost estimates and details that particular part of the process didn't warrant. Because what the press assumed was that by going through that cost analysis, that exactly what appeared there is exactly what the school building committee and the public made their decisions on, which is not true, because those decisions were made earlier on budgets that were very specific to the alternatives. Once you get to that stage in the PSR, the schematic review, which is where the press pulled those from, at that stage of the MSBA process, it is standard practice for the cost estimators to take the one schematic plan that is available. And the only schematic plan that is available in our case is the new building, because that's the only building. You get to do one set of schematic plans. You know, it would be great if you could have the money and the time to do several, but you get to do one, and it has to be on the choice. So the cost estimators took elements out of the new plan to do their cost estimates. But that's, so in terms of, and Joan did a great job pulling line items, looking at elements. She didn't quite understand where the decisions had been made, which had been made previously.
So you're trying to explain where decisions on actual budgeting costs came in the process, and that some of the understanding was based on proposals that were not fully estimated by our cost estimator.
Oh yeah, earlier, yeah, there were, that's part of this process. It is complicated. There are a lot of estimates as you go through, and there are estimates that are misunderstood along the way because some early estimates were literally just construction costs, others were full, so that is confusing. All along the way, the public was told exactly what was in the estimate, what was in the various options, and so you said that the citizens were told it was just the K-Wing and just code. I mean, that was honestly not the case. It was all of the alternatives were laid out in front of the citizens, and there was a survey that was put up, and everybody had the ability to go and put your responses in there. So that's that piece of it. I mean, it's an opinion. I think that's putting it not quite the way it happened.
Okay. It looks like Marie wanted. Oh, I thought you, because I know you've been part of the building committee. I thought sharing some insights. Do folks have some other comments?
Yeah, for the record, Julie, this is a PS stunt, and I'm not commenting on anything I'm seeing here, not having advance warning on it.
Okay. I just have a question on quote in here that says option 1 was an estimated $40 million, which would have been renovating the existing building, replacing the systems, finishes, custom millwork, equipment, furnishings, as well as the K-Wing. So I'm asking for clarity on that $40 million.
So
Or I guess I should ask Ken, if you know where this 40 million, or Bill, if you know where the 40 million.
I believe Joan got that in the PSR, it was filed with the state in June.
It's filed with the state in June. Okay.
Yeah, I believe that's what the article said.
No, the PSR, I think the lowest level project was 42 million in the PSR. The 40 million was the baseline number that the school building committee did vote on from the May cost estimates, which were the ones that were used for the decision.
42 is worse than 40, but you really have to ask Joan for her source.
Yeah.
I don't recall, I wasn't planning on making this presentation.
Yeah, no, I understand. Okay, and I'm just, Cara, I guess you don't,
Do you have any
questions?
concerns that you could lose the Devon's contract because you don't have an adequate building?
Not really.
Has mold and so forth?
Well, the mold, I mean, I think everybody agrees the K-Wing needs to be replaced. So I don't think there's a question of the mold in the K-Wing building.
The contract comes up again in between that time and
It comes up in 2 years before the building's even built.
True, but it depends on what the commitment is at that time. If you go back through the MSBA process, it'll be unclear potentially whether or not you'll get EA funding and that a new project would be approved in that time. So that does cast doubt on the commitment that Harvard has to educating students over at Devon's.
Okay, so you're just raising the point that if we haven't made a decision, it jeopardizes the Devon's contract potentially. Okay. Do you have any questions about some of this information that you just heard from Ken?
Well, no, just as a owner of an old house, I know as soon as you start peeling back something, you find out a lot more issues than you ever would have thought at the outset, just looking at something. And so I think that's probably par for the course of what we're dealing with here. I think it's been gone through quite line by line to understand all the issues that have come along with that.
I would just add, sort of my personal concern is that the mold in the K-wing is not a new problem. It's been around for over a decade. I think at this point, part of the conflict that I'm picking up from folks who are struggling with how to go forward with this is understanding that we do need to do something about the mold. There's frustration that it wasn't dealt with earlier, since we haven't known about it for so many years, and that they're feeling a little bit pushed into having to make a decision because we can't let this go on indefinitely, and they're looking at it as an expensive cost to them. So I think, I don't think it's going to be a clear-cut vote at town meeting that people are going to walk in with their minds made up already as to how they're going to vote. I think there's a lot of thinking that's going on in the meantime. I hope people keep talking to their neighbors and listening to their neighbors. I keep thinking of Dick Cronin saying, at the end of town meeting, we're all going home as friends and neighbors. And I hope we can stay friends and neighbors ahead of town meeting. I don't want to see this splitting us. I think that Alice is doing a good job of trying to help certainly me and others understand the financing that they've gotten to, how they've crunched some numbers. I think so. There's a lot of other ideas. We good to hear from them. I would encourage people to keep studying this and feel free to call anybody on the board. I think with that, we need to move on to the next.
I just have one sort of question.
Yes.
I mean, to me, it's a little rare to have the first time Ron or Leo have left us to come back tonight. I assume they're a member of the public, so if they wanted to talk, they're in public communication.
We had a communication.
A little while, they can sit there and
Yes.
wait for public
Yes.
communication.
Yes.
Okay, great,
Absolutely.
thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you, Ken, for walking us through some of this history in another perspective. Now, speaking of financing costs, we have, the next item on our agenda is to go through the results of the personnel study that was recently completed and their recommendations for how to reclassify and set wage rates for our non-union personnel. Marie is going to walk us through all of that.
What you all received in your package earlier was a very thick personnel study by HRS. I'm not sure if folks have had a chance to go through it. On Monday, Sandy Stravinsky, the consultant or lead consultant that we hired, had given a briefer presentation to the personnel board, walking them through the study and the results. They've already received the complete study, and this was, I believe, their second meeting to date with Sandy. Currently in the town, we have a wage and classification plan that looks basically like a grid. You maybe have all seen it if you've sitting on the finance committee. It's similar to the school's grid, only there's a sort of sideways. The increases or merit according to folks is based currently exclusively on longevity. At the completion of 1 year, 1 moves one step forward. The underlying grid to date changes based on the COLA, and that is typically then also in tandem with the COLA rate set by the Teachers Association, even though we're all performing very disparate jobs. The first thing that Sandy had done was she had engaged in a kickoff meeting with all of the staff to let them know that the study would be taking place and that their input would be required. All town non-union staff were given their job descriptions. We're also given a template to write what's changed, what do they really do, what do they no longer do, what changed since the majority of these descriptions, they were last updated in the early 90s. Subsequent to that, the staff members, department heads reviewed to determine do they really do this, and signed off on all descriptions. The consultants went out and then performed a market survey. One very cool thing in this packet, this presentation that I'm not going to go through. There is a page, since we're always looking for comparable communities. And it lists the 12 comparable communities. Well, it's a summary sheet of, the benchmark communities in addition to the Economic Research Institute. One of the goals of this study was to come up with a fair and equitable compensation and classification system, which also had a strong merit component. So it wasn't restricted to the same step and grade where you're rewarded based on your longevity, but you're rewarded based on your performance. The study then and the results were compared for internal as well as external equity to say if you have two people who are doing the same functions per se, but they might be in different departments, are they within the same compensation, the same step and grade, or within the same grade. What was presented to the personnel board on Monday was the change from the current 13 grades that we have in sort of ascending order of not so much difficulty, but different core competencies to a position that has 15 grades. And instead of having discrete, here is the first step, X dollars, here is the second step, it has a range per grade. There will be a strong merit component as well as a performance review and feedback, and there will be a subsequent meeting should the Board of Selectmen accept the Personnel Board's recommendation, and should the town meeting likewise accept that. Reviews and how-to approaches will be approached with the department heads and then also with all staff members in mid-May. I can answer oodles of detailed questions if you're interested. This is the quick overview. This is the Cliff Notes version of the very big study. We have the very big study, and then you can get my sort of ad-lib, even shorter version.
And personnel board unanimously supported this.
Were you with that? Okay. Do you guys have questions?
She did a really good job, and I thought what Marie addressed was really accurate, looking at the comparables and trying to retain people and hire people, and we've had 2 police staff now for a while. The adjustments, $50,000, I think, right? We're talking about in the town budget?
The overall adjustment. So if you're curious, for this article, I want to say it is written down. I can't read my handwriting. Article 42, the fiscal 2019 wage and salary adjustments. One of the things that was discovered in this process is that there are people who are below sort of the starting range for what their competency is for their job. There's one adjustment for that. There's a secondary recommended adjustment for individuals who have been performing their position for 10 years. They're running at the midpoint of that range for their job. And then the third recommendation was to move individuals who have been performing for quite some time to the first quartile, in some cases in a staggered movement. Net, and this includes an individual who is under contract on the lease use contract, which is a negotiable item. The total impact would be $56,000 max.
For this year, and then for this coming fiscal year, and then the following fiscal year, all the adjustments have been made and no changes with
If all of the adjustments were made, so you're talking about fiscal 20,
Yeah.
I would need to know what the CPI would be voted on. That's something that the Personnel Board would be heavily involved in, as well as the Board of Selectmen, of looking at the Consumer Price Index to shift the range, but then also, determining what would be available for any merit increases.
So I just have one question, and I think that this, and on page A11, they have the current positions that we have, of the current either salaries or hourly rate, and then sort of their analysis to get to the mid-range, where our starting point should be, basically. But the last column has Harvard data higher or lower than 750th percentile, which is what we were aiming for, correct, as our sort of cover. There are an awful lot that read like percentage below. Is that how much they need to come up to get to that?
In some cases,
Get to
the
the
thing that we
75th.
wanted to get to the 75th percentile, but what we basically, that is,
That's the
that
maximum.
the proposed moves for fiscal.
I realize that. I wanted to make sure I was reading that correctly.
Yes, we wanted to leave something with some level of latitude to likewise.
So what I ascertained from this is that most of our pay is below.
For those comparable positions.
Yeah.
So on that table is what I'm looking at, these are not actual, this is looking at the brackets, the low and the high and the rate. So this is not looking at somebody's actual salary, right, or hourly wage.
Just looking at the scale.
Just looking at the scale, so the actual scale was, in many cases, is off, all right.
But some of them is off quite significant amounts. Anyway, do folks have any questions? We've talked in the past about switching to a merit-based system. I don't know if you've thought of any questions since we talked about doing that. I don't know, Stu, if there's any insight from the Personnel Board?
No, there are a few things. We have to go, we haven't been trained, part of this contract was to train us on the rating system, because this really hasn't been updated in 20 years. So we've been we're defining jobs that, jobs have changed a lot. Right, so we haven't gone through that yet, but I think the consultant's done a really good job with this, and Marie and her have worked together very well.
Okay, so
I support the merit standards too, because of it's the way that people motivated over years of employment. But I wondered how our performance standards to be developed and delineated, so they're clearly communicated to each employee to understand what they need to do in order to get an excellent performance rating. And the second piece is, does that mean you have to do contracts with everybody?
This is for the town non-union, so as part of the process then, when individuals will be sitting down with their department head, there will be a self-evaluation component as well as setting measurable goals. And all of those goals and evaluations for folks will be coming back to the town hall. I think that transition to a goal that is measurable might be trickier for some department heads, and we're planning actually that we'll be working with them.
Make a comment. I think this is a good study, a very important step in the right direction, and I thank you for doing it. I think it's good progress.
And thanks for the communication that you gave us and we walked through, particularly because, as I mentioned to you, I've managed people under 4 or 5 different compensation systems, and whenever you change it, it's tricky and you have to really explain it to people. And the merit-based one is great because, as Kara said, then people who really work hard get rewarded for it, as opposed to just you move up a step because you're in your job. So it really helps reward great performance. And from a town perspective, the way when you manage it, you have X amount of budget. which leads to, a level of increase, and then your merit wobbles around that, which I think is new for people in the town, but businesses that have had so much input in the process in terms of the job descriptions and how it works already, that I'm confident they will do a good job in terms of rolling it out.
I think also just for the general public to understand, when you're in a certain grade level, when you get to your top step, there's no other place to go. And so after 10 years, you're basically at the top. And so all you're getting are cost of living adjustments and no additional acknowledgement of the time. And I think it's important for retaining really good employees to be able to say the longevity, institutional knowledge is certainly appreciated, and when they're doing a really, really good job, we want to be able to acknowledge that. So with that, if people don't have any other questions, I would entertain a motion to endorse the recommendation of the Personnel Board.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thanks very much, Marie. Thank you, Sue.
Read the honors work.
Okay, minutes. We have minutes from our meeting on the 3rd. Somebody want to make a motion?
I move we approve the minutes from Tuesday, April 3rd as written.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Public communication. That looks like a very shy crew out there. We have, if anybody would like to make a comment, there's a microphone. Don't forget to introduce yourself. I'm very sure I will. Who are you?
It's the first time I've been to a Board of Selectmen's meeting since I got off the Board of Selectmen. So this is a big deal. Okay, and I came here to plug all the positives that Mr. Marinelli's presentation would have shown you. And Mr. Marinelli is probably one of the smartest people I know, even probably darn close, but even smarter than Mrs. Von Lessing. But no, don't take that personally. You went to Brown just like your father-in-law. Seriously, Mr. Marinelli's presentation contained a fair amount of work that was put together with input from people that have been on the Finance Committee, the Capital Committee, building committees, people that have actually built a school or renovated a school. So there was a lot of information that Mr. Marinelli had in his head. And I think Mr. Swan did an excellent job under the circumstances pinch hitting for Mr. Marinelli. And I think you all missed a big opportunity. And I think, to me at least, that's the problem surrounding this whole school building project. People aren't listening. They've already made up their mind. We're put in with a contrived choice. I think you all spent more time arguing about whether it was okay that you got the handout today or yesterday. I know when I was chairman of the Board of Selectmen 2 times, I put a lot of flexibility to get more information rather than less information, because more information is better. More information allows you, who have to make a decision on this article, to make a better decision. And what I saw was most people, or some of you, don't want more information. I remember from the Board of Selectmen's own policies and procedures, you're not supposed to come into a meeting with your mind made up, and it's darn hard. But at least, maybe you have your mind made up, maybe you're not going to change your mind, but at least you listen. And I think any one of you that served with me on a board for more than 1 or 2 years, that I would at least give me the credit of saying, I've gone into a meeting, and I've listened to people, and the only person in this room that'll tell me I don't listen is my wife. Okay, but I've changed my mind, and I think you missed a big opportunity, and I'm really sad, because this is a huge thing for the town. It's going to affect us for 25 years. Most of us are going to be, pushing daisies up in Bellevue when this thing is paid off. And I'm sorry, you all missed a big opportunity. Thank you.
Thanks, Ron. Anyone else? This is like alumni night.
We're supposed to hold it forever. Okay. Cindy Russo, Lancaster County Road. I am one of, I believe, 5 former selectmen in this audience. I'm going to echo a lot of what Ron just said. One of our former selectmen spent a tremendous amount of time preparing a presentation. A lot of people came to hear it. And I don't know about your rules. I don't think anything was purposely done to break the rules. I think Ken tried to do it properly. Didn't work out. But it wouldn't have hurt anything. If you had listened to that presentation, it would have helped the people in the audience, and it would have been a lot more polite to one of your alumni who put a lot of time into it, prepared it, and I think you should listen to him. Ken did fine, but it wasn't his presentation. He didn't know what to say, he just looked at the slide. I think you should listen.
Anything further?
So finally, I will say, Bill Marinelli, 50 Stowe Road, one of the former selectmen in the audience. I will apologize for not getting this information to you sooner, but frankly, we've spent a lot of time gathering this information. And one of the big problems about this process is the lack of information, the lack of transparency in the information that's been provided, and just a hard time getting it from the mess that's out there. I'll be frank with you. And I spent a lot of time trying to get this information correct and not give you just jumbled stuff from a collection of spreadsheets and frankly, a lot of misleading information that's out there, including a lot of what I saw in the financial presentation a couple of weeks ago that was presented at the library. As far as I'm concerned, it's fine that Ken gave it. Ken can hold his own. But I think hearing Alice's explanation of that process is all I need to do to rest my case. It was very convoluted. It's not very clear what happened throughout that entire process. And I think it's a symptom of everything that's going on right now in town that no one can really understand. It's never been clearly presented. And in my view, there was never an adequate examination of just the K-Wing tearing down and the true renovation of the 1988 building. And I think it's really a very disappointing situation when we didn't have a school committee. And I don't blame the school building committee, I blame the school committee here. They're responsible for the education in this town. That they didn't knuckle down and at least try and come out with one alternative, maybe making some sacrifices that would have gotten us MSBCA aid, National School Building Authority aid, and did the minimum required to meet the commitment set for the town. And that is the real problem in this process.
I would just like to remind people, thank you, Bill. I know you try to maintain a level of politeness, so you can mention that the whole board, rather than mentioning people specifically by name, just say that some of the information was not correctly presented from the Board of Selectmen.
Susan Mary Runninger, I'm on the school building committee, the school committee, and the capital and finance committee. I do appreciate the amount of work that Mr. Marinelli put into this. However, there's just misinformation in here, and I would caution the Board of Selectmen not to take this as the facts. There are probably 5 or 6 slides on here with direct, inaccurate pieces of information on here. The school building committee has been open to the public. Every single public meeting that we have had has had press coverage. This has been well covered. It has not been an intransparent process. The school building committee has put together public sessions, public information sessions. There's one happening tonight. There is one more. So the fact that there is misinformation out there is something that we have striven all along to clear up. The choice before the voters and what the choice the school building committee made was based on really the value of putting what ultimately the lowest cost project that would have gotten MSBA reimbursement came to about a $40 million project cost. It's based on renovation per square footage allowances. That's what the newspaper article was about, was allowances, not line item detail. So that's historical data. Moving forward, the school building committee made a choice of, is it really worth investing that much money into a building that you're really not going to be able to make last? So it wasn't about getting a new gym, it wasn't about getting a new cafeteria, it was really the value of the town's finances. So we take that seriously. All of the school building committee members are taxpayers. I know this is a tough thing. I would have loved it if this would have been a real true discussion about the financing of the project. But to have a PAC be able to present without the school building committee being able to provide you with accurate information is concerning. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak. We are having a public session next week. If people would like to come and get the accurate information, if you'd like the school building committee to provide you with up-to-date information, we're happy to do that as well. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Nathan Fitch, Copeland Road. I'm on the capital planning and marketing committee. I think it's unfortunate that people come to this week and a half before we have to vote and say things are confusing and we don't know what's going on. As has been stated, there's been many public meetings. You can go to many of them. They were announced everywhere. I went to several. My wife went to basically all of them. And if you want a good picture of what happened and where all the money is being spent, you should go talk to the school building committee. There's been multiple articles about the minimum things that need to be done. It's either $20 million if you do the legally minimum, or 28 if you want to fix things that are actually wrong, like the roof and the heat. And so then we're spending 28 million, and we have a roof that's still going to get ice damage. And we're going to spend $28 million on this building that lasts, what, 15 years? And then they'll still be paid off and we work on another large amount of money with the raise to fix things again. Or you can spend a little bit more, and actually your taxes won't go up more if we stop and switch over to a renovation. Renovation will cost the same because the construction costs are going up very fast. In the last 4 years, the construction costs for schools from the MSBA went up 30%. We know that the interest rates are going up. We're lucky to get in where we are. So we can get around 4.25%. If we wait to get the MSBA again, that's a 4-year or so process. The rates would be 5.5, and 30% more just for construction costs. This information was given out by the MSBA, by the SBC. And I think this is all things that you learn if you go to the meetings.
Thanks, Nate. Does anybody else want to speak?
Reed Holston, Bolton Road. Just 3 comments. The first one is our chairman of the school committee pointed out that there was prepared, I'd like to know what that misinformation was. It's very easy to say that there was something wrong, but I would like to know what she feels is wrong. The second thing is the insinuation that there's a pack out here. I believe the pack is sitting at the table there. For you to have squashed any kind of information makes it very uncomfortable for me. And the third thing is we're going to vote for the Charter Commission. And personally, I'm not going to vote for it for the simple reason that the people that are sitting at this table will now decide who the volunteers are in this town. So basically, you've taken our ability to vote for these people away from us. And personally, the group that sits at this table, I wouldn't give that ability to. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Hello, I'm Alison Sears, Park Lane, and I just have a question and then one comment. My question is it customary for the board to present material on an issue like this that's been evaluated by a resident? So Ken's presenting Bill's information, is that something that's customary?
Generally, it's not uncommon for a board member to be talking to the public and gathering information from various constituents and putting together what they would like to bring to the board for our consideration, and that's actually what I had expected. It's not usual for somebody, and this was just a miscommunication, unfortunately, on my part, when preparing the agenda. So I think that it's not a common practice, but we certainly can make accommodations if we know in advance that if somebody wants to present something to the board, they can. So that's your question. What's your comment?
So my comment is that I just wanted to make it, everyone make it clear that what was presented was in fact the opinion of a resident and not the opinion of the board. The board, mistake me if, please correct me if I'm wrong, but the board did vote to move ahead with building the new school, correct? So I just wanted to make it clear that that was an opinion piece from a resident and not, it doesn't necessarily reflect the opinion of the board. I think that
the board hasn't voted on the current position at this time. Last June, I was actually not here, but I did call in. I heard bits and pieces of a presentation, and it was not a unanimous vote. I don't think.
I did not vote.
Yeah, I know, you abstained.
I abstained simply because the choice was between a $35 million school and a $30 million renovation, and I thought they were both ridiculous. And will put the town at risk. And I haven't changed my position.
I just think it's so confusing when the board is...
So we voted that time to proceed with what the building committee was recommending. That was basically the vote of the board. So it was giving the building committee the authority which they needed to the Board of Selectmen to proceed with SBA.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, any other comments?
Hi, Will Blair, Prospect Hill Road. Will Blair. I'm so glad that I'm here and not there. I don't miss it at all. I'll miss all of you a lot, but I don't miss some at all. The problem with situations like we're in, with the decision they make about the school is that everybody's right. We do need to fix the school, no question about it. And then there's going to be all kinds of opinions as to how we should do it, how much we should spend, what we should do, what we shouldn't do. And people on both sides are going to be passionate about it. If I was, had little kids in the schools, I probably would be a pretty strong advocate for getting something done right away. And I'm kind of on the other side of things now, and I'm not crazy about the idea of the taxes going up, and I worry about the impact of people in my demographic and in the town. I see a lot of for sale signs in Harvard. I don't know, but I would bet in the last couple of years there's been a big turnover in residents in Harvard, which is kind of interesting. But every time we take on a big project in town, we get to this point, right? Does it sound familiar? It feels, we've all been here, right? We've all done this. And we get down to the wire, and we come up with options, and the folks that did all the work, and you've all been on committees, I've been on committees that did all the work, by the time you're almost done, you're a devotee, right? You are in this head, ass, and stomach, as my grandfather used to say. The problem is that sometimes we don't have money. Sometimes we can't get folks to go along with the idea. And we have to recalibrate. We've done that a lot in the past. Lucy said something very interesting, which is a lot of people in town don't have a definite opinion about the project. I actually don't have a definite opinion about it, but I'm comfortable that we're so close to a vote and there's this much disagreement about it. That worries me a little bit. I wish I had been more involved, but frankly I was taking a vacation. So I don't know what the trajectory on this is going to be. My hunch is it may not pass and we may have to recalibrate. But I think for the people with kids in the schools and the school committee and the school building committee, I do believe most people realize that we need to do something about that school. And it may be a compromise. The building you're in here is a compromise. We're sitting in a compromised building, which people said could never happen, and we found a way to do it. And if you use the restroom, it's going to go into a town center sewer system, which people said would never happen. So I guess I would encourage everybody to stick to their convictions, but understand that we may have to come back at another bite of this apple. But that doesn't mean we should give up on it, and it doesn't mean that one side is necessarily right, the other one's wrong. So I hope, like Lucy said, we go into this as friends and come out of this as friends. I don't think this is the last time we're going to talk about this in this town, but I do hope whatever does happen, if indeed it doesn't go forward, I hope we can get the energy to get right after it and get it fixed. That's all I can say. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jeremy Crocier. I'm at 2 Deercoat Trail. And I just want to give my opinion. Somebody was saying that it's one person's opinion. Here's mine. The reason I moved to this town is because of the school system, because of the high education rates and the people moving on with success. That's what attracted me. I plan on being here a long time. Since I've been here for 3 years, I've invested an awful lot, not only in my own personal property, but also in the town. I volunteer for soccer for both my children. I volunteer at BNS. I volunteer, across the board. I have a close group, knit of friends that, I social with as well here. I mean, we're growing roots. We are the next group of people that are going through here. And whether we address this now, where we have state funding, or we address it 10, 15 years from now, it needs to be done. I've walked through the school. I've seen the presentations that Linda has done and Josh has done. I've sat in on numerous of them. And Ken, no offense, but I'm watching you over here rolling your eyes at these comments. It's not necessary. I mean, we all have opinions, we all have stakes, and you're right. Everybody is right here. But I'm stating my opinion, and there's a lot of folks that unfortunately couldn't be here. I came over here, not putting my kids to bed. I mean, there's all of us. We all have a vested interest in some form or fashion here. And I think we need to be respectful of those with opinions, even if they are different opinions. And I think that this town really needs to come together in one way. We really do need to pull together as a community. I'm very disappointed with folks on both sides that are coming at this in a negative manner. I see this as an opportunity for our town to put an investment in our future. In my children. And granted, my children will only see a couple of years of this, but I'm going to be here a long time. I want Harvard to be renowned for our school systems for a long time. I don't want them to have to sit in 90-degree classrooms with a window open. I mean, that's ridiculous. They should have modern facilities. Tying together an old school with mold inside the walls, and other people's comments about having to put a new roof on a building, would I tear down my house because I have to put a new roof on? No, you wouldn't tear down your house. That's obvious. But there's so many things that pull together for this building, that's why we have to invest in it. It's all these things together. So, one guy's opinion who's going to be here a long time, and who's going to continue to contribute, we need to invest in the school, we need to invest in our children. So, and please, try to keep the derogatory things down as a community, and try to be positive, everyone. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. So first I want to see if there's anybody else who hasn't spoken. I'm
Wade asked for comment to understand what today's presentations were.
Oh, yeah, Wade Wilson wanted to know the misrepresentations. He wanted Susan Mary to speak to that only.
I think that perhaps, I don't want to spend a lot of time. I think Susan Mary can get with Wade and I'm sure get that information out to everybody, what you felt was incorrect. Well, I want to see if anybody else wants to speak because we're at 8 here. Are there any other comments? I guess, Susan Mary, if you know something very specific, you could make it public, but if not, then you need to figure out another way to get that information out.
Just take one example.
That's okay.
So one example is on the reduction doesn't mean now as MSBA 8. That is accurate. We could certainly reapply.
Excuse me?
The slide I'm talking to is the objection doesn't mean no MSBA 8, which is true. We could reapply. Everything will be 3 years delayed and prices will go up. However, what's presented here are 4 options that make it look like it's a good idea to delay. The first option was given a year-long extension, which is no longer possible through the MSBA. The second one went from being a middle school to an elementary school, so the project's changed completely. The third and fourth examples, actually, their price went up by $5 million when they were re-accepted with the MSBA. So I think it's just a misrepresentation of the information. I appreciate that we do want to solve this problem, but it would be great to have a real fair representation of the information.
Okay.
That's 1 out of 5.
I have more, but I don't want to take up
Yes, one more comment. And nobody else wants to say anything at this point? I mean, I'm letting Bill say one more thing, and if there's nobody else, I'd like to be able to close this portion of our meeting and go on to the rest of our meeting.
I just want to correct one thing. I made this presentation up, but it is not just one person's opinion. What I represent is the opinion of a large fraction of the people in this audience right now. And I think it's unfortunate that we be characterized that way. That's all.
Okay, thanks.
Charles Oliver, 14 Simon Avenue, New York. You don't save money by delaying a project. I mean, just interest rate alone is going to cost any amount of money additional if we wait another 5 years. It's silly to put this off any longer. It's already been put off and off and off. I've been working with Harbor General Store as a wine distributor since 2010, and people have been talking about the schools since at least then. And so I moved in 2015. I just don't. What it looks like to me is that people who never intended to support this project at all are now sandbagging. And I don't. I think that if you had intended to influence this project positively, you should have done it a year ago, or 18 months ago, or 2 years ago, as opposed to waiting at this, very, very late date. It's unfortunate that all of these objections are becoming so vocal and so negative about the school project at this point. There was very little talk about this. I mean, it seemed like the process was going quite well over a year ago, and now everybody's up in arms about the cost of it. It just doesn't seem. It seems as though there is a large set of people that never intended this project, no matter what it cost. And despite the reduced impact that Alice and others have been able to do through bonding well, has reduced the project cost, at least to taxpayers, down to the level that the renovation is going to cost originally. I think that if you supported the renovation at the cost before, which I did originally, as a member of the Finance Committee, I had originally supported a renovation because I was very concerned about the cost to the taxpayer, and that was something that I've been charged with to make sure that we make prudent financial decisions. But based on the fact that the costs are getting so close together, and also with the renovation, nothing is guaranteed. You can't rip open every wall in order to figure out what's going wrong in the building. You just have no idea. So you drill holes here and there throughout the building, you have no idea if envelope is totally messed up. So I think that risking not getting back into the MSBA program is could be very, very costly. I think there are plenty of examples of towns that have our level of financial resources that have not been readmitted into the program. A close friend of mine is on the capital and the finance committees in Lincoln, and I've seen the struggle that they have had since 2012 trying to get back into the program, and it's not happening. Now, instead of spending $28 million, they're going to spend minimum 50. It's an insane amount of money that they're having to spend for not even getting any new building whatsoever. It's ludicrous to not do this. We were going to spend a lot of money 5 years from now that we could have already been in the new building educating kids and on.
Sorry.
Hi, Debbie Ritchie, Bear Hill Road. I said I wasn't going to say anything, but I just want to respond a little bit. First of all, I think when this project started, almost the whole entire town supported it. I do not think it's a matter of people who never supported the project raising their objections now. I was on the capital committee, I was chair of the capital committee when this started. I think the huge difference in people's feelings is going from a replace the K-wing and upgrade some of the other existing structure to a whole new building at $54 million. And that's where it comes. I've seen us go through projects after projects in this town where we start with saying we're doing a base job, end up doing a very high-end job. The high-end job gets voted down, and we come back and do a moderate job. And I'm just sorry we didn't do a better job of finding a moderate solution to this problem. And I did go to a number of the building committee member meetings, and I did raise some of my concerns at that time.
Thank you. No one else who wants to speak? I thank you all for
Sorry. Hi, Barbara Romero, 4 Woodchuck Hill Road. So just wanting to chime in about the fact that, for one, I am a real estate broker, and I did also come from a town in New York that had very big school problems also, and they actually lasted for over 20 years. And the ramifications of the property values are huge. With uncertainty, especially with school, because the reason why people move that are upwardly mobile are oftentimes in a situation where they have children that need to be educated. And that basically can destroy a community's property values. And this is multi-million-dollar homes that I'm talking about, not small homes. And so anyway, I see a huge value in the school systems, and I think we all do at Harvard. And even if we could have done a more moderate version, we didn't. Right now, this is the situation, and if we don't decide, there is going to be a heck of a lot of uncertainty, and it's publicized now, guys. Everyone can Google Harvard and find out about this situation. If it continues to not be addressed, that's going to be a big issue, not just for my generation, not just for my age group, but you know what, it's probably going to be a bigger issue for the people that are in retirement. So I just wanted to say something because also I know a lot of people in our age demographic are with their children right now and completely exhausted, working full-time on top of raising small children, and it's just hard. And so we appreciate all the time that you all are taking, and we would be here more regularly and chiming in if we could. We're just exhausted. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I think truly nobody else is going to jump up, so I will close the public communication. I think that Alice wanted to clarify one comment.
Yeah, I truly hope, Bill, that you don't take my lack of clarity to reflect on the process. I don't think, well, on my feet sometimes when I literally have 10 minutes to come up with what I'm trying to say. So I apologize for not being clear. Do not let that reflect on the quality of the process, please. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you all for coming out. I appreciate your concern. As I said, keep talking, keep asking questions. Dr. White is sitting out there. The catcher on the way out. Should be a lively town meeting. Okay. I know you all want to chit chat, but it's hard to see if we have a meeting. Could you all please leave unless you want to sit and listen to the rest of our meeting? Because we need to go on with our business. And we're talking in here, makes it really hard for us to hear our town administrator. Thank you.
Is it my turn?
It's your turn.
As per the board's, I'll speak loud, don't need me. As per the board's request, you all have a copy of my administrative report. It was placed on your chair, so you know exactly what it says. The Howard General Store has to have another hearing, and that hearing will be next week. They received their license approval for the package store license. However, the on-premise pouring license was not approved.
Can you explain why?
It wasn't approved by the ABCC because of the LLC had not been accepted by the Secretary of State's office.
They're,
Pouring license was not approved.
The LLC,
yeah, they need a new name.
right, they need to register the name.
It was
so-
already taken.
Right. What it is actually, he changed the end after the comma. They don't look at anything after the comma, if I'm correct, Julie?
Yes, it was HGS LLC,
Right.
changed it to HGS Inc. And even the town, so it's the same. So it was a minor glitch, but there's what we have to have a hearing to resubmit everything again.
So that will be next week.
Yeah.
At your board meeting. The Harvard 4th of July Committee is requesting your participation in this year's parade. Harvard has history from 1918 to 2018, the 100th anniversary of the World War I armistice. It's this year's theme. The parade is July 4th, as well as the field activities with a rain date of July 7th, and the fireworks and shootings will be on July 7th. Okay? Marie gave you the next item via the town planner, Bill Scanlon, has made us aware of the grant through the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs. I just bring this up to the board in case anyone's interested in pursuing it, which is for municipal vulnerability planning grant. And municipalities who wish to prepare for climate change impacts, build community resilience, and receive a designation as a climate change municipal vulnerability preparedness program municipality. And I put the thing in there for the board.
So EAC is aware of this, and we're trying to pull that together with Bill Scanlon, our planning board's aware, so we are
you have a topic that you are looking for funding for?
Well, we do the directive from the master plan on emergency, sort of disaster preparedness, so we're trying to figure out what we'll be able for that, but it has not been defined yet.
Okay. I'm wondering if they would consider managing potential tree threats. To underwrite the tree board, being able to go around and take down a lot of dead trees.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's our biggest threat.
Losing power and then the roads being blocked, etc. So toss that out as something for them to think about. Okay, sorry.
Next item is the longest item, town meeting items. David Elchajian, the finance director, and I are working with town council, bond council, and the MSBA on the motion for the school building article, which is number 25. We got it back from our town council with some comma and other reformatting issues. The bond council wanted language at the end of it for the premium that we receive. That has to be put at the end of the language, so that was put in. And then bond council also wanted the language that was in the ballot question, as far as the description of the project, to be the same in the motion. We did all that. We sent it off to bond council and to the MSBA, and we're waiting to hear back. So we are working on that. And it will be the way it has to be read at town meeting, before town meeting.
So I'm assuming the wording is that applies the premium to lower, it applies the premium to this bond.
Correct.
That's the wording that was chosen. Thanks.
The planning board has amended the marijuana article number 33. And I'm working with town council on the motion, and the land use administrator, Lizelle, is working on the handout for town meeting. The books that I put together for the Board of Selectmen, the moderator, and will have the correct language in the article, and it will have the correct motion.
Okay.
So my understanding is that I don't know if there's multiple amendments, but it was gone from 6,000 square feet to 3,000.
That is what's being put into it as of from last night, but there was a change in this article from when the book went to print to what they presented last night, and then it changed last night.
So they did vote to reduce it?
That's where
it's still 6,000 square feet. What they did is they limited to 1,500 square feet the amount for retail.
That's how I heard.
Okay.
But one other question too, just on that, I believe the council question, because it wasn't answered last night at the planning board, which is what happens if...
I sent that to him today, and he's doing the whole thing on it, and I will have his answer.
Thank you.
So I guess to follow up on any last minute amendments to this, there will be a handout, not only that what we are seeing or what planning board is getting from making the motion.
Public will see the same thing.
Public will have a new handout.
Correct.
They're hashing it out.
Yes.
Oh.
You really do know.
You're embracing this one, aren't you? Okay.
I'm going to read something out to town meeting. Article 42 of the annual town meeting refers to Article 5 instead of Article 6. This change will be made in the motion and announced by the moderator. Article 42 is the article that puts funds back into the omnibus budget. It's the 62,000, not to exceed 62,000. It refers back to Article 5, which is the free cash distribution. So it should be Article 6. Okay? The last bullet, which is the longest bullet under town meeting items, the moderator, town clerk, the assistant town clerk, the assistant town administrator, myself, and Bill Barton, who will be the assistant moderator, met yesterday to review the warrant and discuss issues regarding it. Biggest issue was the number of people who may require the use of the Cronin. We've already planned to have sound and video to the auditorium from what's happening in the gymnasium. We can't have the reverse of that, so anybody who's in the auditorium will have to go to the gymnasium microphone to speak. Worcester Sound and Audio, which Julie coordinates with every year, is the one doing the sound and the audio, as well as the video going into that room. As I said, the assistant moderator for the auditorium will be Bill Barton. People who wish to talk through an article will have to do so in the gymnasium, so they should get up and move if they want to talk on an article before that. Move before the article actually comes up. The moderators will be connected via walkie-talkie, so that Bill can tell Bob that someone's coming, or Bob can ask Bill, are there any issues, so forth, so on. We are suggesting that people get there early. Obviously, with the number of people we're expecting anywhere between 800 to 1,000 people. And with that, doors are going to open at 8 a.m. The checkers are going to get there at 7:45. And parking will obviously be at a premium with that many people. There's only so many parking spots. I expect Hess to be full. I expect the parking at the Bronville to be full. There's a First Communion going on at the Catholic Church, so that parking lot's not going to be available.
I know there are a number of handicap spaces right now in the parking lot because of the size of the school. Is there any way to provide some additional handicap spaces if you're expecting a lot of seniors to show up? With some, put up temporary signs to say.
We can try. I'll make sure I mark that on my sheet.
There's no opportunity to use maybe the COA mark.
They are using that. They are organizing that too.
That is something that is being done by the Council on Aging, and they are providing a van to bring people to and from their homes. Babysitting at Hess is being provided by the Legal Women Voters. And a document that's attached to this that you have that's a draft that we'll get to in a minute. We'll talk further about children. All guests except for myself, Town Council, Peter Rowe, David Melchadjian, and the Fire Chief. The Fire Chief will be in the main room. He will be there for monitoring. He and one other firefighter will be there monitoring the size of the crowd. The other firefighter is a town resident. Those are the only guests that will be allowed in the main room in the morning, unless they're coming in to speak to an article. All guests, including non-registered residents, will be in the auditorium in the back section of the auditorium.
So only registered voters in the gymnasium?
Correct.
Someone like Tim Killhart, he needs to speak to his articles.
He's going, all the department heads and everybody who's there getting a memo from me saying that if the article is coming up and it's your article, immediately move from where you are to that room. We have a capacity issue in that room, and we're reducing the capacity to allow for people who are in line speaking on an issue, as well as the guests that will be coming in to discuss. This is an unusual situation. I think it's great to have that many people, and we're just trying to provide every effort possible to allow as many people who want to come to town meeting to be able to come and vote at town meeting. Register. And it is too late, just for the public, it is too late to register to vote for town meeting or for the election. Okay. Department heads and others may need to answer questions, will have to make their way to the gymnasium just prior to the article coming out. Voting on Article 25 will be by paper ballot. That determination has already been made by the moderator. It is only the moderator's call. It cannot be overturned by town meeting. It is just the moderator's call. I checked with town council after our discussion yesterday, because I knew what was going to come up.
Yeah.
And town council has said it's the moderator's call. The moderator determines how any question is going to be voted on and how he's going to count the ballots, whether it's by a show of cards or whether it's by a paper ballot. He has determined that it will be done by a paper ballot. Marlene in the town clerk's office is already working with 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 election workers who will be there to be counting the ballots, to be handing out the ballots, to handle that whole process. Go ahead. I'm willing to stop here because I know this.
Oh, yeah, I'm fit to be tired of this one. I can't believe town meeting doesn't get a vote on a secret ballot. And what's the rationale for secret ballot?
It doesn't. Town meeting doesn't get this.
We had, the last time we did this 11 years ago.
No, I think if
The moderator
the
gets
moderator
the
hasn't determined ahead of time, it's
That
my
is correct.
understanding, the town meeting can ask for a paper ballot vote, but the moderator ahead of the town meeting can determine how the votes are going to be taken. Air, for instance, doesn't do a show of hands, they just yell. So whoever yells the loudest wins. I mean, I've been to one of their town meetings.
At one point too.
Oh, standing
Standing
here?
here, we were standing, they
Oh.
wanted everyone to stand.
Yeah. So, anyway, it's.
I'm not done talking to the AG's office yet because I don't believe this answer. And I can't believe the town meeting, the legislative body doesn't get a word in how this is done.
The legislative body does not run town.
That's true, the moderator does, but the moderator has to go. Last time I saw this witness, we went to a secret ballot, there was a specific reason, fear of reprisal, and I thought that was the only reason you could have a secret ballot. It's nice calling it a paper ballot, it's a secret ballot, it's not town meeting.
It is town meeting.
No, it's a secret ballot.
You take a look at town meeting time, it will tell you exactly how voting is done.
Anyway, so one of the
I already have
selectmen.
the answer.
Anyway, keep going, ballots are counted.
How's that?
There's a specific ballot that's being printed or something?
There is a ballot, it's a yes/no ballot, it's a paper ballot. Marlene already has the paper ballots ready to go. Marlene already has the 1,000-something pencils, has everything ready to go.
So a person writes in yes or no?
A circle, yes or no. And then the election workers will be the one collecting all the ballots, and they will be counting the ballots.
And reported to the town clerk and.
They will be done by section. There are 4 sections in the town, in the gymnasium. There are 3 sections in the auditorium. Those sections will be counted by election workers.
And then reported to the town clerk.
Each one will be reported to the moderator, like Bill Barton will get the 3 from there, and he will report to the moderator or the town clerk at that point in time. The town clerk will collect all the data from all of the counting that's done, total everything up, give you total number of voters who voted, give you how many voted in favor and how many voted against.
And it's to calculate the 2/3 of the.
That is correct.
Okay.
And, can I put a question? And will they wait until everybody in the building is registered before they are able to vote?
Only those people, once voting starts, the doors will close.
Well, I'm talking about, so before the voting starts, will they make sure that everyone who's in the building would, I'm just trying to play this board. If there's people in line that are waiting to register that haven't gotten into the room, they're obviously there because they want to participate. Well,
They must be in the room at the time the moderator calls for the vote.
So they have to be checked in.
They have to be checked in.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. We are expecting this article, in the document that you have at the end of this, we're expecting this article to start around 10:30, and the moderator is allowing 2 hours for presentation and discussion on the article. So all the ballots are being counted. We will do the Boston Cane and the Citizen of Note. The school cafeteria will not be serving lunch, but the room will be open for those who pack a lunch My understanding it was supposed to maybe a food truck or two that may do that.
Okay. And how much time do you think the moderator is allowing for lunches?
I think that he's going to determine that depending on when the balloting is all completed.
Okay.
So he's looking at somewhere between a half an hour to an hour.
Okay.
In the afternoon, the auditorium will be shut down. And everyone will be in the gymnasium. We don't expect that we'll have the same crowd and that we won't have the issue for the limits for the number of people in attendance at that point in time in the afternoon as well. The guest section will move from the auditorium to where it normally is, the back left corner in the bleachers. And then on top of that, the handouts for the afternoon session, we're advising any board or committee that has a handout and that their article is in the afternoon session to not put it out in the morning because they will not have enough for the people who come back in the afternoon.
And for those who haven't done it before, on average, what do you recommend for the number of handouts? I know you, Julie, you probably have a lot of copies.
It depends on what it is. Like, for example, the planning board article is just going to have a green sheet for the marijuana one. That's probably going to be printed about 300 copies.
Okay.
Yeah, she picked the color, I didn't. So that's the town administrator's report. If you go to the last page, just to bring it to your attention. We put together a town meeting update, and it's more a question and answer for people. Should I get there before 9 a.m.? Why is this year different? Do you have to be a registered voter in order to vote at town meeting? If I live in town but I'm not a registered voter, may I still attend town meeting? We're expecting a lot of people to come to town meeting who never attended town meeting. And so we put together this document, which is called Town Meeting Update, could be called Town Meeting Q&A. The only thing that I wasn't sure of is League of Women Voters the only one doing the babysitting, or is there another group involved? Because I wanted to give them credit as well.
Well, I don't know if they have actually doing it.
Okay.
It might be the Girl Scouts. It's not honor society, right? No.
Volunteers.
It's volunteers.
Okay. So,
We're doing it on behalf of the league?
Yeah, on behalf of the league.
Okay, so it's being done through the league, whoever it is, okay.
so I put in volunteers there as well. Will children be allowed at town meeting? We strongly encourage parents to make childcare arrangements and use the babysitting league. We're asking them not to bring them because we have that capacity issue in the main room. We're trying to get as many registered voters in there as possible. If anybody does come, then we bring them into the auditorium.
Not the gym?
No.
Yes, so this is a draft, so who's approving this?
What's your question?
I have a question, who's approving this draft?
Well,
I think
It's
it's
already been
really unfriendly to families, and I never recall that being an issue before. For this year, of all the years to make it unfriendly to families, is not the year to be starting this policy.
It's a capacity issue. It's nothing other than that. It's not to be unfriendly to families.
We already have Cronin going, let's have Cronin going. It's wrong. If it's a draft, I'm voting against it if that's staying in it.
I think what is being suggested is because of the capacity problem in the gym, we don't want kids in the gym. I think that they can be in the Cronin auditorium.
But we're not going to be Cronin right away. So you get there, no you're not. So you get there early because you listen to this and then you're doing what? You're not allowed into the gym and you're not allowed into Cronin. That's what this is saying.
Why can't we open it at the same day? Just
Because The issue with going right to Cronin is that we will know if we're going to get these 700 and some odd people in the gymnasium. And then we don't need to open up the Cronin.
Well, is that hard to do?
Opening the Cronin, Cronin's going to be already open up.
Right, so then why can't
And we've already reduced the number, it's from the capacity for the gymnasium in order to allow for the number of people who are in line and to allow for the guests who are going to be having to come in to speak to this article.
I understand that. Well, how come we can't just give people the choice, open them both at the same time? If it's not a hard thing to open Cronin, and then everyone can choose whichever room they want to go to, and when the gym hits capacity, then they don't have a choice, and they have to go to Cronin.
Yeah.
Or maybe if you're saying you're close with families or parents or whatever, to go right to Cronin along with those that are actually.
The check-in, if you read the document and what I said earlier, is all check-ins going to be done in the gymnasium.
Right,
Sure.
Well, that's fine.
Yeah, so they check in.
there, and then we'll go to whichever.
That would be probably, and if it turns out that only 300 people show up, we can go to the people in Cronin and say, there's space.
It's not only going to be 300.
I know, I'm just saying.
I a long time ago said there's going to be at least 800.
Yeah, and I think then if we hit the capacity of Cronin also, then,
There's no way we're going to do it.
Okay, all right.
There's no way, because you got we're limiting the capacity in the gymnasium to 720 to allow for the people in line and for the guests.
I don't know what's the capacity of Cronin.
So, Cronin is 650, 660.
Okay.
We're not going to reach that many people coming to town.
So what if you change this to say that families bringing children are encouraged to use the protocol?
But if we get to the article and the gym isn't full, then they can come over.
Yeah, or they certainly can come over to speak too.
Well, you have to take bring the whole family to the room in the gym.
Yeah. Okay.
So I would say, I think open it both at the same time and allow families with kids to go in.
We've got it all set up.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got video equipment, we've got speaker connections, we've got
Well, you
everything
have
set
Bill
up.
Martin.
Bill Martin will be running that room.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. See, I can say yes. Where do I sign in for town? Where do I sign in for town meeting? Proceed to the gymnasium. There will be 2 lines. We're telling people ahead of time. Voters on Abbott Lane through Old Turnpike Road will proceed to the left line, and voters on Old Littleton Road through Woodside Road will proceed to the right line. And the line is going to start out not in the gymnasium, it's going to start out in the corridor. And the 2 tables, we're setting up 2 sides of that door that you enter. So there's usually just a table on the right side. We're putting tables on the left side as well to get everybody through.
Okay.
We have people there, 2, 4, 6, we have 8 people checking people in.
So if you hit capacity in the gym where there's a family, they're going to go to Cronin. They go in, register.
They go in one door, they go out the door down by where the video equipment is. They go out that door and they go back down the hallway to the auditorium.
Okay. Would it make, I guess there are too many stairs, never mind. I was going to
Yes.
say, people checking in, you go up and
No, there's too many stairs. There is, in that area of the stage that you're talking about, that back door, it is too dark.
Oh, okay. Okay, so then, and it will be marked, I'm sure.
Yes.
Traffic.
If there is no room in the gymnasium, you will be directed. Well, right now, we can delete that part. This might get to be on one page now. How does voting occur? When will school building articles be taken up? Again, we're expecting the first 24 articles will only take an hour and a half. That's an estimate. It's totally an estimate because there are a bunch of variables involved, how many questions are asked. of any article prior to that. Looking at all of those articles, I don't see anything significant on the budget. The only thing that might come up during that period of time is the town plan. That might be the only question. Other than that, all the other articles.
You never know, there's always something.
No, there's always something, but
It's always $1,500, really, and somebody wants
Small amount.
But when you look at it and you look at all the articles from capital that's embedded, you look at all the small warrant articles that have been embedded by the finance committee, when you take a look at everything there and everything's being supported, the only other thing that's in that first section is the issue that the Board of Selectmen differ from the finance committee, and that's on the funding for the Conservation Commission. And their recommendation is $5,000, but the motion is written for the Board of Selectmen to say $10,000. So that's the only other one within the first 24 of any significance.
Yeah, but I just, for a second, how does voting occur? I don't know how many folks have not been to town meeting before. So I'm guessing a fair amount. So I would put some notation in there about the show of cards. The card that you are given is your ticket to vote, basically. So if you lose that and you have to do a recount, you're standing there with your hand to go under. First-time voters, they really need to hold on to that card.
That makes it really clear.
Yeah, I hope so. I always write my name on it, so you can be looking around and figure out.
He reminds everybody, just about every vote. Your card on.
Will the cafeteria be open for lunch? Or will lunch be available? The cafeteria will be open, but will not have food available. The possibility of food trucks on premises has been mentioned, but it's not confirmed. We're also going to say that if anyone wants to pack a lunch, they can eat the lunch in the cafeteria.
I have a question. If we do get 900 people, how far away will the 900 person have to park?
Significant. If you get 900 people, I would imagine some people are going to be coming to a car. But if you get 900 people, and let's say you have 600 trucks, you're going to be parking probably up here down the hall.
I would suggest we put an additional carpool.
Yeah, carpool and I'll walk over, so I'll ever get out of the car. Yeah.
It'd be pretty embarrassing if you drive. Anyway.
What will happen to the auditorium after lunch? I've already explained that. It will be shut down. We will not have a capacity issue in the gymnasium. Everybody will be moved into the gymnasium. And that will give the audio visual gentlemen the ability to stop breaking down stuff in that room.
Whoa.
Yep.
Okay, well, a lot of planning going into this year's town meeting, I gotta say. Thank you so much.
Julie's done a fantastic job coordinating all the outside vendors. The chairs are going to be set up by the vendor. The tables, we've had to get 18 tables this year, which is above the normal number. So we've got 18 tables, we've got 400 chairs coming in. Julie's working with that. They're going to be setting up on that Friday afternoon after 2:30. And then the DPW is going in the morning to help on force pulling stuff from a storage area that's down those stairs in the back of the building underneath the library up to that area so that it can be moved in after 2:30. There's a lot of coordination going on the cable for their setup.
And also between the two rooms.
Well, the two rooms is being done by the Worcester sound guys.
He's awesome.
He is, he's fantastic. He's providing the two screens that will be in the gymnasium for the PowerPoint presentation along with the projectors that are there. The projector that was in the Cronin Auditorium isn't big enough to handle the throw that they have in the auditorium, so he's bringing one in for there. We're using the screen that's in the auditorium to project everything onto. We're using the sound system in the auditorium that he's connecting into. So it is logistically an issue. However, it's been great. The school has been fantastic. We had a meeting there over a week ago with Mark Forst, myself, Marie, the Worcester sound people, the cable people, that walked through to see where things were going, how it was going to happen, what he was going to need. So all that's going to be done. Julie's made sure that the chair people and the table people are coming in at 2:30 in the afternoon after school is let out. And then after that, on Sunday morning or Sunday, they're coming back to tear it all down. That way the school will be able to be open, and the DPW guys are going to be back there first thing Monday morning at 7 a.m. to bring all this stuff back to where it's supposed to be.
This is probably costing us more than any time we usually cost.
Yes, it is. We do not know what the cost is until we get the bills.
Okay. I had one other question about right now. For usually we have in that corridor leading up to the gymnasium, people who have information posters, or I think in the past we had people selling food.
Yeah.
Do you have people signed up?
It's not signed, it's first come, first served.
Okay, so 4th of July
t-shirts.
t-shirts.
Be there, the 4th of July, this coffee.
Okay. Yeah, okay. So it's going to be a tight space in there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, thank you. And I hope that everything is smoothly.
It won't. It won't. All the planning, I don't know how many town meetings I've done. I've done some big ones as well. We had 1,100 people at town meetings once. Coincidentally, now the tools over the whole K through 8. We had over 100 people, and we had to do something. Cafeteria had to be open. There was a whole, but as much as you plan for it, things still go on. So as long as you go in with that and just be able to hunt as things happen, then that's what we've done.
Okay,
There will be no snow this year.
Don't say that.
Don't say Okay, so thank you. So moving along, for our action discussion items, first thing is we need a couple of people to look over the letters for the Ginny Thurston Scholarship, and probably to present today is graduation.
It's not a graduation, it's at the
Oh,
awards.
tonight, and when is that?
June, it's usually the Wednesday before,
10 days before?
The 6th, May 31st probably, it's usually a Wednesday night. That's your
Did Alice
presentation.
and Ken, did you do that?
I did it.
Yeah, no, both.
Yeah, I cannot do it, because I'm a senior.
I heard Karen over here.
I thought you were doing
Okay, we have Kara and Alice.
Awards night is June 6th.
Awards night is June 6th. Okay, I won't. Okay. And when are those?
So they're going to be due by the 10th, so that you can act on the 15th.
And a couple of them usually come in.
Well, yeah, I just went, yeah, right to the end.
Over, so Carol, Julie takes care of it and sends it over. And we just read it and have to discuss and bring back to the board who we think is a good candidate. And this is for community, this is for civic involvement. This is what it is.
I'll send you the right.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Thank you very much. And one of you will make the presentation. We have the resignation from Park and Rec.
Yeah, I don't want to accept this resignation.
I have not heard anything else from Park and Rec.
Something on
I move that we accept the resignation of Frank Colon from the Park and Rec Commission.
And send him a letter of thanks.
Thanks for, and send him a letter thanking him for his service to the town.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay. The next item is, I would appreciate a vote of the board. I know at the last meeting you all said you liked the Nashua Squanicook River Stewardship Plan and the designation as well as a river. Here is the plan in a binder. We're not going to print it until after town meetings. There's a copy available at the library where people can go look at it, and I'm going to leave this copy downstairs in the town hall. People can look at it there. It's got some great information in there. So I would appreciate a vote of the board to endorse our Article 37.
I move we endorse the, you want the...
Oh, and then also the report letter. Yeah, and then you authorize signing.
Yeah, the agenda was a little revised.
So you're asking us to act on the National River Wildlands Center Stewardship Plan, so I move we approve the National River Wildlands Center Stewardship Plan and authorize the administrator to send the proposal letter.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor? Aye. Thank you.
The next item we move to next week. Thank you.
Okay, here comes the fun thing.
This is the fun part.
I went through and counted all of the Board of Selectmen articles. Half of the warrant is submitted by the Board of Selectmen. That's entirely.
It is.
I blame the chair.
Okay, so, we all got a wonderful fat book in the mail.
Just under $2 each per mail.
These are priceless.
So have you guys already like figured
We're
out
going to recommend again at this year's session in June.
It'll be electronic.
It would be electronic and send out a postcard.
So I went through the article, this listing that is in our packet, and I just put POS next to them. I think we can just go through that and decide who's going to speak to Rich. Yeah. And that's all we're doing tonight, and then next week we're going to go through and decide the ones that aren't ours, do you support them? I assume the ones that we consider we do support, but that's up to you, I suppose.
So I have a little confusion I haven't completely gotten out of here, which is it's my niece's first meeting tonight.
What? You are not given a pass.
Yeah, I know. So we're working that out. Of course, you know, mother-in-law has an input on that. So, but for sure the next night. But I just.
We'll give you like 20 out of the 23.
20 out of 23. Exactly. I'll be there. Well, I'm sorry. Next night. Sorry.
Yeah.
Jumping ahead. You're right. I was thinking the afternoon, but it's not going to be that way. I'm going to be there.
Next month.
Sorry. Sorry.
It's not that fair. It's going to be done at 5 o'clock.
Wait, so we're leaving at lunch time?
No, the thing is at 9:30.
Oh, you'll be back after lunch.
2 hours away, yeah. I'm trying.
Okay, oh, because you have to go out for lunch after and all that.
That's 2 hours away.
So,
Yeah.
is she your favorite piece?
Right, I mean, happy to see some of these.
Yes, exactly. They can watch this on YouTube.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Viral moment.
Be careful. Okay, so I guess, okay, so there'll be 4 of us.
Yeah, so we just leave her out of the assignments.
Yeah, so we each get 5 or 6.
Then we can hand them to you.
I'll try to get a better
Have
sense
it
of
to
the
me.
file.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first one is sort of a pro forma, accepting the articles, the annual reports.
That's usually done by the chairman, right?
Yes. The pay the bill
Lucy's already up there, let her
Yeah,
know.
it's already there.
I was gonna allow Alice a moment of glory.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't think it was
$10.15 bill. No, you're already up there.
Okay, well, there, okay, extend the sunset dates.
It's already up there.
We want to move this along.
Yeah, we did, yes. Let's not clutter it up with moving people.
Okay, I'm gonna do the first four.
Okay.
Okay, the fire hose, who's liaison to the fire?
I am.
Oh, that sounds like Stu.
Right.
How about the seasonal mowing?
Yeah, I'm DPW,
That's Ken.
and the next one,
And you're up there.
while I'm up there.
How about conservation fund? Oh, I'm the liaison to Concom. Okay, we get down to the fire alarm system,
I guess that's me.
Which number? I don't know.
15.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, I'm in capital planning, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, just, we're gonna do that?
Oh,
Not capital, not capital planning.
It's varied. Some years capital makes the motion and somebody stands up and explains it. It's certified.
That's why we have so many, because 3 years ago.
For years, it was just capital always did it, and then.
But then the Board of Selectmen, yes, and I can remember which board it was, and half of those members were out there.
Right.
It's like shocking.
And capital was not happy.
Yes, I remember that.
At all.
Oh, okay, so,
Debbie Richards knows she was out of joint,
okay.
because her husband, who was on the
Oh.
Board of Selectmen at
Said
the
that
time.
the selectmen should speak to it?
Yes, I remember the aftermath of that town meeting.
Okay, so they're still together, so that's good.
So capital planning investment fund, fire alarm system.
Well, if you look at it this way, so I'm the liaison for fire on capital, so
Oh.
I would be doing it regardless.
Okay,
Because it
there you
always
go.
goes to the liaison.
Okay,
So
so,
at least that one.
and who's the liaison for the,
Fire station study would be
That would
ours.
be me. the
What
fire
about-
department.
wait, how about the vault? The town clerk?
Lucy is the liaison to town hall.
But Alice, you're already standing.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Alice should just stay up there for capital.
You can do all of the capital.
Yeah, because the fire is me, the fire command card is me.
Okay, Alice, you've got 15, 16, 17, 18. And then we have the emergency generator. DPW? Ken?
Sure.
Then
Which
we
number is it?
have,
I'm sorry.
20. And then 23 is the Hildreth House study. And that's
We already know that one.
amend the code of chapter 62. Or change the number.
You're already there, and that's one of those chair type of, yeah.
I can't even remember what it's about. Something is misnumbered, is that what it is?
Or something, yeah, that's okay, we'll figure
Yes.
it out.
Okay, then we had lunch. We got this to lunch. Going on down. Wow, this seems back to number 37.
Oh, well, don't forget, you have to go back to 32.
Oh,
So
so,
that's forward.
who wants to talk about the,
Recreational marijuana excise.
oh, should we get that?
Sure, Steve.
Did that one.
Stu.
Actually, Tim, on this thing, so medical marijuana isn't taxed, right? So can we, if it's not, can we still put on a 3% home rule tax on medical?
No, it can only be done on recreation.
Recreation tax, okay, got it. That's what I thought. So if there's a single use is for medical marijuana establishment, we would get no extra income.
Right,
Correct.
so you want the retail. Help pay for the school. No, let's see, you look. Okay, Stu, you're getting the,
32.
I got 32.
yeah. You got 32, I turned the page, you're also getting 39. I said, I was going to get on this, yeah. 39 is, I think, Stu, and Stu does 40. Or,
Right. That's fine.
Sean, are you doing anything in the paper regarding 39 or 40?
Remind me which ones those are.
Senior tax, the senior tax credit,
Yes,
the means tested.
yes.
Okay.
Who wants to do the home rule assessor petition? Ken or Alice?
Ken hasn't done many, has he?
Ken, who's got that one?
Whoever's still
Yeah.
there.
Oh, well, Ken, you can do all the rest. You want to do the personnel?
Ken has 4. He has seasonal mowing, roadside tree maintenance, he has,
So
Ken,
it's
helping out your
personnel.
capital planning, investment fund,
Yes, now he has
generator, water.
Okay, well, who's going to do the salary personnel?
do that.
Well, that's
We'll
due.
do the personnel, so you're gonna have to do that one.
There is no acceptance of gifts. There is nobody who's giving them that.
I would call in for that one.
We're going to skip that one, and then you want to do acceptance of highway fund?
Sure. Except
Okay, Ken.
So Ken, you have to stay till the end of the year.
Yeah,
It's all right.
but it's a short walk
It's,
home.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I don't want to see your car parked in the parking lot.
I think that time of the day there'll be plenty of space.
Okay.
So we can all come to your house for lunch?
Yeah, could you do lunch for
No,
us?
I can't like that.
All right, I don't have the snacks,
Okay, move right along here. We have a license application for Ragged Hill Cider Company to be selling at the farmer's market. And you're
They're
here.
having that on May 5th.
They still are?
I guess so.
We can go over for lunch and have her instead.
Right now.
Really good.
Much quicker. That'll make the afternoon go much better.
So whatever happens in the board, we vote. Okay, have you,
They
they had
have-
farmer's market last year?
I don't think so, they're new.
You're new? Good. Have you got input from the police on this or anybody else that?
No, but they gave their assurance and they are approved through the state, so they are, for our requirements, good to go.
Oh, good.
Yes.
All right.
They
Okay.
said they $50.
They paid?
They have not.
Oh, well, they don't get it till they pay. Okay, is there a motion to grant this?
I move that we grant, it's a simple one day, isn't it?
It's a farmer's market.
It's a
license.
farmer's
So it's
market.
all-
Oh, okay, there it is, yeah.
Yeah.
I move that we grant the farmer's market license to Ragged Hill Cider Company for May 5th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. per the application.
Second? Any questions? All those in favor? Whoops, 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 what?
So May 5th, we're doing a farmer's market?
Yeah, but that's not
Between 10 and 2, yes.
10 and 2.
10 and 1.
1, so.
up here at the fellowship.
Thank you.
Yes, the fellowship. It's not at the school.
I know, I'm just thinking.
Oh, it's like a UU?
Pressure on
Yeah.
parking.
Fellowship.
Parking.
I guess
Well,
we're-
the parking will be taken.
People were,
All right.
Okay, so that was anyway, back to approving this license. It's been moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and then, we got a request via, Ms. Allard about this municipal environmental justice, legislation, which is actually codifying a executive order from, Bob Patrick. And they were asking communities to sign on to it. I don't know if people had a chance to go look at the website. Senator Eldridge is one of the co-sponsors of this legislation. And I wanted to let the board and the town to sign on in support of it. And I have a copy of it.
Is this something that we have to do tonight?
No, but I'm just trying to get,
Oh, well, I mean, I haven't even read it, I'm sorry. I just haven't read it, and I just don't feel comfortable endorsing something. I'd love to just read through it first.
Sure, but I would say if you ask for a vote.
Yeah.
then, we'll do it at our next meeting, but it has to, yeah.
I can't eat something.
So this is for, okay. All right,
gone on the transfer station committee. Today we met and concluded that since we're not shooting to go for a paper throw or a SMART program until next year, which is like 14 months away. But we have quite a bit of head of steam up because we have the two consultants helping us right now. So we wanted to, before we hit summer, we want to come in and give the board an update as to where we are and what we're thinking. So the second meeting in June, we targeted. So I just want to let you know that that's coming along. And the team is making good progress.
Great. Excellent. Anything else?
Unless you want to comment on what all that is.
You can comment on all that.
Well, the old library accessibility committee is chugging along as well. The architect underway is carefully working on detailed drawings and stuff because we want to get to the historical commission. A special meeting has been set up with them for May 9th to kick around with them and a hearing 3 weeks later. We're trying to hold the schedule right now because right now, even if everything goes right and we get all the approvals in time and get the bids out and get them back, we're talking about shutting down the building in September and getting that online at the end of December. And we'd rather not push it out any further because it's really going to impact the agricultural collaborative program for the year. So, and it'll also add costs to have it slip. So, anyway, we're busily working away to try to get the drawings together and get them in front of the historical commission.
I have a really quick update. Municipal affordable housing. I just mentioned that there was some question as to whether or not we would still get the credit for the apartments over in Devon's. I've been communicating with the group that's doing it, and we are fine. They did apply. They did change their, the company, that was actually doing it, so they had to reapply, but they were, fully expecting and running the same program. And the reason why it was confusing was because the original specs were for moderate. It became affordable when we offered up the money to make them affordable, so that does not appear in the actual application. And the Devons specifically asked for a record that the Municipal Affordable Housing Trust was still in support of that, which I gave them and said, yes, absolutely, wholly in support of it. The $140,000 is still set aside and will get, exactly. So that's all good. I think there's more paperwork that will have to be filed because they are going to start building this spring. So there will be more units and more children to come to Harvard schools.
I think they're not really doing apartments. I saw Neil Angus at another meeting.
There's townhomes and
townhomes and single family homes.
It's
a bit of construction. So
That would probably push our, almost 6%, I think, or maybe even.
it's going to get higher than that. Okay, that's it. Stu, do you have anything? How's the flagpole coming?
I could have tell you about that. Actually, all right, the flagpole's coming. We think we're on target for a Memorial Day dedication ceremony. I've talked to our state reps who will probably be attending. If anyone from this board can attend, we haven't worked out the details yet, but I'm assuming we'll have sort of an unveiling, rededication ceremony, and the vets will be part of that. The other thing I wanted to mention, though, because I was just to talk about Devon's, when we talk about the Devon's contract, let's always remember that the contract, even if the contract stopped in 2 years, the existing kids in the system get to go through the whole system. So it's not like the contract does that. It's a slow, over a decade when you lose that money. So it's not something that can be gone in a year or 2 years. And the contract has an evergreen clause in it, so it automatically renews unless one side wants to cancel the contract. So, and they have to give you ample warning on that. 2 years, right, so.
Which means they'd have to notify us.
By this June.
By this June.
Right.
Or if they want to renegotiate, they also have to notify us.
So the school vote, right, is
we sold them a bill of goods a decade ago, that we have a good school system, and I think this is keeping to that, and the school committee voted to dedicate funds to the project to get us over the 5-year hurdle and the other 3 capital projects being paid off. So I think there's something we want to keep that contract. It's very good for Harvard schools.
Just so you know, also, I believe the last time they renewed it, when it was opened up again and renegotiated, there was some interest on the part, I believe, of Mass Development to go back to Aaron Shirley, and the parents objected, and Mass Development said they deferred to it, even though it's going to cost more.
Right.
So, but at this point, I don't know what they would.
Oh, it's if you think about it, they have houses that they'd
Yeah,
like to
they need
fill.
to
And
sell.
this is an incredible marketing for them. And it's good for their community because you've got a whole, as Stu said, you have a whole slew of kids that are already in the Harvard schools and they already have relationships with kids that are in the Harvard, proper. And so then if you change the contract, then you're going to have a few kids as they come in to Devon's that would be in a different school. So you'd have like 5 kids going here and all the rest going over here. So there's not a lot of incentives for them to change.
Just to ensure people.
But we don't want to mess it up, that's for sure.
Anyways, I have no, because Ken gave the update on a lot, I think I don't have anything else to report at this point. So we need an executive.
Okay, yeah. I do part. It's okay.
I
I would encourage people to continue looking into the Heat Smart program to understand their great options available for more energy efficient heating and cooling systems that are available.
And how many people have come to your meetings?
We had a meeting a few months ago. It was very well attended, about a month ago actually now, but now the vendors are out going to people's homes and giving them updates on what it would cost on estimates.
Okay. Anything else?
No, like I said, I thank you to DPW chief, fire chief, police chief, and park and rec, who all, as a BHRA parent, we had a regatta this weekend, and all were very helpful in making sure that was smooth.
Okay. Then we have an executive session. If somebody would like to make the motion.
Make a motion to go into an executive session. You're not on.
Well, you're going to read the whole thing.
Are kids allowed at the gym? Are kids going to be allowed at the gym?
No. We're going to suggest they go into the chronological plan.
Suggest or mandate? Yeah.
There'll be a sign there saying families with children should go to the chronological plan. Okay.
The board will enter executive session as authorized by Chapter 38, Section 21.3 to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation. If an open meeting may have detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body and the chair so declares, the board will reconvene into open session only to adjourn. In our eye.
Swan and I.
Walls on.
Well, let's go.
Smart.
Okay. Thank you.